It's episode 336. I finally have some notes. We finally have a broadcast. Everything's right in the world. There's no drama. There's no war and bossing. Say everybody's lovely. Everybody's peachy. They sound sarcastic, but honestly, it's going pretty good. Yiska, hopefully everything on that side of the world's going pretty okay too.
I mean, yeah, as good as it can go, I suppose. Of course, some interesting news this week. Also, you know what really surprised me? Let's put it at the top of the episode in order to cause the outrage that we so desperately crave. But
okay,
how did nobody point out that the broadcast didn't have a desk?
Yeah. Now that you think about it, no desk. Weird that.
Right? Like we had Zoe, and then she was there with Uber and Matt. But it's not like Johnny and Jake were there. They were doing co-streaming, I think.
It's true.
So
what doing?
Well, I guess I thought that would be pointed out because that's very clearly like a cost-saving measurement or whatever, and I assume this will stay the case for this group stage.
I would imagine so, and that could be the reason why, because the group stage is viewed as more of a qualifier. Once we move into the actual tournament play, then the broadcast really kind of ramps up, and you have maybe everybody in studio for the most part. I know that some broadcasts can't necessarily do that, but as best you can. I don't know. Maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. It is bizarre that they haven't communicated that, and that hasn't really been brought up. So,
yeah,
very astute, very wise. Look at us doing wise things. You know what also is wise? Cowboy Bebop collab. Kind of hot. Not gonna lie. I was kind of excited for that.
You baited me with that.
Did I? Where do you think I was going?
How Retro produces.
Oh, see, they're coming up. You gotta get. There's onions to this. There's levels. It's layered.
Okay.
You never know. Okay. You never know when it's coming.
I underestimated your power.
You just live in it. That's right.
Would you say you need to season it?
No, we're not doing chili oil. God, please help me.
With some
yes, orders. You need to fix them. You stop sending memes. You have to stop. He's deranged. He's holding us all socially hostage. This is a problem, and I will not stand for it. But what I will stand for is a Porsche. That skin for Diva looks kind of mid. I'm not gonna lie. Porsche, you could have done better.
That's the second great segue that you wasted on not calling on the patrons. I hope it's coming.
I'm just, it's a build-up. I'm edging everybody. Okay.
Okay.
Watch. Careful. Okay. Oh, what else? What else happened? No shit, Sherlock. We're the esports World Cup.
Yeah.
How view that however you'd like. Here's another good one. Can you explain to me what the eligibility disqualifications? What was that about? I saw that a bunch of teams got disqualified. What's going on there?
So, about 2 teams, we never got any clarification. About the other team with Juzu.
Okay.
I think the way it worked is team gets flagged for having Juzu on the team. Juzu sends in information, they let him play, and then afterwards they look at the information. And the problem is that, this is my best recollection. I did reach out, I never got a mail back, but from what folks were saying is it is an interesting legal situation for Russians to immigrate into Kazakhstan, and how that permanent residency or that residency is handled. There appears to be a specific, let's call it visa, that Juzu is under that does not qualify permanent residency, but also somehow is not that different, and you everyone that immigrates into Kazakhstan apparently gets that ID, and it can be very confusing whether or not that's a permanent thing. It's a tax thing, everyone gets it. Some countries have it like that. I think Portugal is also one of those countries that will give you a tax ID if you stand there for too long. Okay. And it's weird, by the way. When I was in Portugal, you you had a prompt at the McDonald's counter in order to put in your tax ID, presumably because you would get some tax back because it's food or whatever.
Okay,
I don't know
sure.
how it works. Maybe someone can inform me in the comments. But yeah, that then was found out, and unfortunately, that meant that Juzu's team would not be eligible, and therefore they were kicked from the league, and then some were called up. And interestingly, one of Yiska's members, Codex, coaches one of the teams that were called up in the aftermath.
Okay, cool.
And it's of course unfortunate if these international relations cause these. I honestly think like the situation is so special that I don't think there really is anyone to blame. Of course, there's a lot of like that sucks, but I don't think anyone should really blame anyone for how this was handled. Neither the admins, because it's a very special. I don't know, like, are you really going to be like this sophisticated as an admin in the prerequisite of? Here's the problem: 512 teams signed up. Are you going to check everyone's ID? Are you going to just TSA them? I don't think
honestly, in a perfect world, we have the resources, so that's just an automated like system that it can be filtered through. But obviously, this stuff is very new, and I don't.
Brother, that thing doesn't exist on the planet. Otherwise, the TSA would be replaced by AI at this point, right? Like,
well, maybe they should. Oh, I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe I'm not Dune pilled. Okay. Maybe the great AI in the sky.
I have a take on that too, Joe.
You do?
I saw Dune.
So did I. My girlfriend fell asleep.
Holy, okay. How did you like it?
I thought it was a fantastic movie. Obviously, like, me and how I consume media, like I did my homework, big bunny ears around homework. I know Yiska loves it when I do my homework and then I claim I like want to talk about things. But I did see the movie. I saw the first one, saw the second one. Thought it was a great movie.
Good.
Thought it was fantastic. I was unsure of some of the changes, and we can talk about this maybe we can get into it maybe towards the end. But I'd say like one of the better movies I've seen in a long time. I'm not a big movie guy. I would recommend it, and I think that anybody who knows me knows that I don't typically recommend a lot of things. I'd say like a good IMAX,
by chance.
I did not watch it in IMAX. I wasn't trying to spend that much money. I'd say the regular theater experience was fantastic because the sound mixing was phenomenal. I was very, very impressed with that on top of the visuals and everything. I'd say like a good like 9.6 movie. Like, very, very strong. Yeah, very good.
So I will say Dune 1 was my favorite movie of the last decade, I would say.
Sure, yeah.
So I went in with high expectations. I also watched it in IMAX. Okay, and I caught a fucking unicorn like showing for that in Germany, which was an original version IMAX thing that also was okay for people with jobs. Okay, so I lucked out the first time. Second time, impossible to get. There are a couple of showings at like 8 p.m. Where it's OV and IMAX. It's also $20 then, but instead of 10. But like it was just all booked out this time. So what I did instead was to get an OV, so original version English, and a regular cinema. Honestly, I think that might have ruined the experience for me.
Why?
It's okay. So the one thing is, these movies legitimately look different in IMAX because they use more screen space, as I understand it. And if you have an authentic IMAX cinema, I believe it's 40% more screen. Like, it's not scaled differently. It's actually more things you see. And that sense of scale feels like it would have made a huge difference. Honestly,
could have been.
The way it was, maybe my expectations were very high. I, of course, read the books as well.
Yeah.
That's 7.5 for me. I was not
really.
Yeah, I was not.
Was it? Did you? Okay, fuck. Okay. Pin that. We'll get to that at the end of the show. We will
just
talk about
all
Dune.
the inflammatory opinions out early, and then
very fair. I think
the
that's
content in what show? What do we dip it in?
We dip it in the chili oil made from our patron producers. That's right. We're finally here. The patron producers. You can, you've reached your apogee. Congratulations. This moment's for you. Wouldn't be possible without our patron producers or our YouTube members. Thank you so much to Battle for Crab, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buhau, Picasso, Bronzebot Buhau. I think I already said that. Lawshin, Rexane, Volamel, and Sugar High, and our YouTube members, IMDRW, Brother Adam L, Isam Jill, Fire Element 6, and AK. Here we are. Overwatch. We have Overwatch to talk about. We also have a new patch. Yiska, I don't know if you want to quickly skim through this patch. It feels like a absolute fluffer of a patch. It feels like a nothing really strikes me as like ginormous. Rhine being a little bit better. This feels like a ladder patch. This does not feel like something that will shift the meta very much at all. I think maybe supports have some interesting viability options to reassess, where like maybe Ana could be a little bit better, maybe Brig could be a little bit better in certain circumstances. I know that I saw Funny Astra talking about how he felt like Lucio was a little too strong and probably deserved some nerfs, didn't get any nerfs. So I don't see the meta super changing. I think maybe forcing Reaper a little bit more in an A will probably be on the rise. I know that EU loves their Reaper, loves their rushdown shenanigans, so I think that they're probably eating good. But this doesn't scream super impactful.
Yeah, I think my understanding is that most of the heroes that were already meta in pro play received buffs, right? Like,
yes, Ramatra got a buff, Orisa is playable, Doom got a minor buff, but yeah, buff.
I mean, not yeah,
inconsequential, but like it's not going to shake up the meta so much that it's going to like facilitate maybe other picks kind of creeping up into like viability.
Yeah. So like I think it won't affect pro play too much. And we're still seeing some variation across the global.
Yeah, which is fun. Super cool. Yeah, I think through the few games that I had caught and took some notes on, there was definitely a lot of variation. M80's out here running all kinds of stuff. They're running Doom, they're running Sigma, they're running Ram. Got some Orisa in there too. Apparently there was some Zarya last week. Like it's very, very all over the place. So it's a fun time to get in there, roll up your sleeves, and get into some worm piss. It's great. Love it. Good stuff. God, I really want to dive into Dune, but I'm not gonna suffer the YouTube commenters on making this a Dune podcast like we did with Attack on Titan.
Sure.
That said, you did mention prior to the show that you're more caught up on the Eastern side of things. So teach me smart about some Korean Overwatch. I need to know. So I think who be cooking out there.
Here's what people really care about, right? It's all about big measuring and like like power rankings and whatnot. So the interesting thing is that it's possible that Falcons is not the best team in the region. And that's fucking wild to say, given
why do you say that?
The strength of the roster. Because like by consensus, or like even by Moon, and I mean Moon is a biased narrator here, but even through Rush, they see WAC as the best team in the league.
I think that you're telling me that Junbin and Max are leading the best team.
And that's the crazy thing. Is that Junbin actually looks really good, especially on Doom. I think there's as wild as that is.
This points to one person and one person alone.
Here's the problem. Why does everyone get so much better once they don't play with Proper?
Who could know?
Why is that happening to everyone? Why is Heesung maybe the best player on the planet right now? Why is that possible? The thing is, like, the problem is, it could be Heesung, but Proper is also fucking lights out, my guy. Like, that
he's still very talented.
It's also just possible
he's just
that it's
asshole.
Maybe he's an asshole. It's also very possible that someone of that skill just demands certain ways the game to be played, and it's fine to play around him, given the skill level.
Yeah.
It's also not like Falcons has really stumbled. They haven't lost a match yet.
Sure,
So
sure.
like they're just behind one match, and I mean they haven't even lost a map. So it's really hard to say like which team is better. But WAC is looking really solid right now. And we also know a thing about rookies in year two. So sorry, rookies or players that were rookies that then come into the year
Yeah.
two, where they actually start playing their level that they had shown in contenders. It's a pattern that we sort of observed. I think here the stakes are also lower. Some of those teams are really, honestly, they're just pushovers. You can definitely farm some confidence here. And overall, I will say like this scene is, of course, the Korean region is the most stacked. The best Overwatch is going to be played there.
Oh yeah.
It's not going to be close. I think like 70 or 75% of this region is for our players, as compared to 25 in North America and Europe. So take that for what you will. It's also a different format, admittedly, and less teams. So there's less to buff out, right? Like once we get into the top 8, I think we would see or observe similar patterns in North America and Europe, probably, even though it will cap out at 50%, but also there weren't that many NA and EU players in the first place. But yeah, like I think this is super exciting. Runaway, it's interesting. Like you looked at them, you didn't think they were that good, but it's also because like some of those teams were actually like not beating the fraud allegations, specifically Genesis. I don't know if you
I was just looking at the match records and I'm like, bro, how the fuck did Genesis lose to fucking Poker Face?
Eric, do me a favor and just hover over the names of the teams just to bring up the players, because they won't show in I think you need to yeah, exactly like that. Okay, so for WAC, just show folks what WAC is. Like Lip, Lip's the Lip, okay? Sharong show's still crazy, by the way. Sharong actually showed some Zen. I will say that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Shu is still Shu.
I mean, yeah. One of the best.
Yeah. And then folks thought Genesis was going to be better.
Yeah.
Look at that roster. Dude, like Fraud Watch, definitely.
Really? Huh.
It's kind of wild. I don't know how Choice One keeps doing this, dude.
That's crazy.
At some points, it got to be him. I don't know if it's like what it is. Maybe it's just like big unlucky, but like sucking with Decay on your team is getting increasingly hard. And I even think like that backline on paper is not that bad, right? Like
I mean, I don't meta context to the Decay discussion. I don't think we can go at Max and Junbin and like hoist them up as the, the speaker from the outer worlds, if you will, when Decay very much has like ran that same gambit with Mag. It's like, oh, what happens when Mag is not with Decay for an entire season? Homie looks like he's actually doing pretty well. So I feel like there is like this archetypical, like, it's not even really archetypical. It's just like typical workplace shit where it's just like some people just are tough to get to working with. And they're just, a little they're high friction.
Stylistic differences could also be the case for sure.
Sure, could be 100%.
By the way,
I'm definitely.
Let me quickly be mindful of our audio listeners, because like the roster Genesis is Decay, Choice One, Callan, Kalios, Teru, and Maka. Maka, of course, the Florida Mayhem main support that had the stamp of approval by Gamba.
Yeah,
I don't know. Like you thought those guys were going to be a lot better, but then again, like even look at the other teams. Like for instance, look at For the Gamer, which is
or
Flora,
Bellasteria, Bernard, Violet, Finn. How are they doing?
They are doing pretty well. It's also because Bernard was probably underrated. The rest are like Flora. But the Alpha Yi Violet Finn is still a very good selection, right?
Yeah.
Runaway.
What's the meta out in Korea?
A lot of Doom, right? Like
still a lot of Doom. Okay.
Yeah. Definitely some variations based on map types, but it's it's definitely like very Doom heavy, and then there's of course some Sigma here and there. I will also say for Falcons, most of the time, interestingly, Smurf is playing. I would say he has a little bit more play share, which is kind of interesting over Hanbin, right? Hanbin is definitely not hard bench. He's definitely still playing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you would have thought it's a little bit more decided, but it really depends on the map. I feel they just want to keep both of them in rotation and keep warm.
Keep them fresh. Yep.
There's really no, like, until you meet Whack, I would think nobody will touch you, and Whack is only in like 10 days, so they pretty much play like most of the stage. Yeah, it's the 23rd, I think. Yes, yeah. So it's a while until they play Whack. Until then, what other matches do they still have? They have
just fantastic.
They have Yeti, and they have For the Gamer. There's some For the Gamer is not a pushover team.
Not a bad matchup, yeah.
They're also currently 3-0. So, yeah, this is going to be interesting to see how they are going to go about their substitutions there. To me, Runaway is a surprise. And Runaway is a surprise also because they still maintain this weird clash factor. I think they beat, was it Genesis 3-2, if I'm not mistaken, recently? I did not catch that particular match, but like once again, it was like actually really close and really clutch from the last moments that I caught. I did not watch the entire match. Yeah, overall, like if you want to watch the best Overwatch, especially in that density, you cannot go better than Korea once again.
Yeah, 100%. And I mean, like that doesn't shock anybody. I think I've yet to super dive into Korea. I've been a little Western pilled for my own sanity. But yeah, I wouldn't doubt that Korea's out here slapping everybody, and it is surprising. I will say there's something about an unsigned, nameless team in WAC that just is I feel like it will be attractive to like a sponsor once we get out of like qualifying through the groups. Is it crazy to wonder if like T1 just throws them a couple grand, just says, hey, wear the jersey?
It really depends. And we're once again back on the topic of Esports World Cup.
Yeah.
How qualification will be handled, because they haven't said anything. I got a press release saying that the OWCS will, in part, and the statement was quite ambiguous. It says it serves as an opportunity for EWC qualification. In my mind, it means both that it could be the only qualification, but it's more likely that it is one of the opportunities.
One of the options, yeah.
So I think that matches what I've heard. I think there will be other ways to get in. And then it really depends how many slots you give to Korea, right? Once again, like, if we're being honest, this scene is... We've yet to hear about the prize pool. We've yet to hear about how the points allocation system for the big pot, in terms of like the summation,
the
club, for the clubs work. I assume I always heavily inferred that there will be a cap of how many points a singular team can get in each esport. Meaning, like, if they are going to have 10 games, maybe you can only contribute your top 5 placements towards the entire poll. And like, feeling more teams just gives you a higher chance of having higher points. That's just a complete inference. Maybe they want to reward teams that have 10 different esports teams. Maybe that's a possibility. I wouldn't think so. I think there has to be some measurement there. And that directly determines... Maybe there could also be weighting based on the esport. Like, maybe CS2 is worth more than winning Overwatch. We don't know, right? So until we have clarification on that, and maybe orgs...
I would hope that orgs have that info, because they're signing people. Like, let's be honest, there's not any fucking particular reason why anybody should be out here signing StarCraft 2 players.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they are under NDA. They probably have a better idea
Sure,
of how that
course.
works.
Yeah.
Especially the big orgs. I think the smaller orgs probably that are currently saying probably don't have that type of information. Are just like
Right.
because Overwatch esports is such a low investment esport. They're just throwing something at the wall and see if they can get some value out of it. Presumably they have buyouts, so big teams might just come in. I'm not sure how big the buyout would in the end be, but that really it all determines. It's all based on the numbers of the Esports World Cup. How much prize pool is there in the individual games? How much prize pool is there in the overall pool? How many points does each esports contribute? And is there some cap of the amount of esports? And based on that, the value of Overwatch will be chosen.
Evaluated.
Also, let's be perfectly honest. Overwatch Championship Series was just completely devalued in its meaning.
Every spot now is
we are basically in a TI situation now.
Yep.
And especially like if OWCS was the only way to qualify for these slots, that would be different. It might still be very important if, let's say, 80% of the slots were going to be given away by the OWCS. That's a possibility, right?
Still useful, yeah.
But if there's even like a 50% share, or like a, Lord forbid, only like the top team of each region gets it, and then there's a qualifier for 20 other teams to participate in the Esports World Cup, that completely devalues the scene. Now, it's in the best interest of a publisher, by the way, who has to greenlight all of these tournaments, to tie it into their own endemic league, right? Or in their own league, as much as own league can be applied if a subsidiary of the Esports World Cup in some sense is running your own esports, right? So it all comes down to numbers, if we're being honest. There have been rumors about the prize pool, and it's been wild. I almost kind of feel like they've been tossing out some numbers in order to see who leaks. But the numbers that are being brought up are many times the prize pool.
Of course.
I
mean, is that crazy?
No. And the only way to really give any meaning to these international majors is for the skins to contribut enough in order to outpace that. The numbers I've heard make it very unlikely that will ever be the case.
That won't happen. Yeah, that will. We cannot compete with Saudi money. That's just not going to happen.
Yeah.
We would need to summon the spirits of BTS, Taylor Swift, NASCAR, and perhaps European football fandom to rival that. That's just, we just don't have that much space on the field, right? So long as the Esports World Cup exists, it is very likely. Well, I shouldn't say very likely. I agree with the controlled kind of comments that you made, that like it really depends on how we're qualifying for the World Cup. If it is a direct like highway to the World Cup, then the OWCS still has some kind of value. But like you said, if there's any way that there are other ways to qualify, it's rough out here. It's rough out here for this product. There's not going to be. I'll
also say
it really is the details for sure.
There are some rumors in the ether that an EFG subsidiary will run different qualifiers, and that almost took my breath away in terms of like how entwined the Esports World Cup Foundation is with EFG at this point. Like that just so seamlessly works. I mean, it makes sense. They're all in some way like subsidized by the Public Investment Fund. But this so seamlessly seems to lock it together and works like one machine is not something that I foresaw necessarily. Maybe they have some contractual agreements that it is like basically a white label production then or whatever. I wouldn't know. But if that was to be the case, it's just a rumor at this point, of course. But yeah, that's something that I did not see. And I also think that sort of should change the perception of how the esports washing aspect or the barrier between like the EFG teams and the esports World Cup should be perceived, right? If it is indeed just one big business where everyone just like works across as if they were one big company, right?
Yeah.
And keep in mind that they are very like a lot of like Ralph Reichert is I think the CEO of the Esports World Cup Foundation. He's one of the founders of ESL. So like there's just a lot of overlap here organizationally, and it just like gets more entwined. And I thought there would be more separation, but apparently not. So it's going to be interesting to see how this develops into the future as we get more announcements.
Yep.
Other esports have also been announced. I think Rainbow Six is in. I think Fortnite is in. 10 games, 11 games are announced now. Rocket League was announced today. So this is going to be big. I think there's a world where Riot Games is not going to be in this year. But we also know that esports like PUBG have announced a 3-year partnership with Esports World Cup. That means it's an annual thing for sure. We kind of knew this beforehand, but so this is going to be the foreseeable future for esports everywhere. And depending on the prize pool, it's just going to be the biggest tournament every year in every esport.
Is there a world? Now, competition is tough. You're looking at Saudi money, which again, disclaimer. You think however you want about the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund and all those ethical questions, right? Disclaimer. Consume at your own discretion. Now, with Riot being linked with them earlier on, we haven't heard anything publicly, which is it's an eyebrow raising time. Is there a world, do you think, that maybe Riot decides to do their own in-house like World Cup format? Same format, but just with their own games and said, no, we're just gonna do our own thing.
Between the Riot games, Valorant and
so like League, Valorant, TFT, like
I don't think that's attractive. They actually want third party, and it makes a lot of sense for them to go into, because like for them it's a marketing expense, right? And
sure,
if you like, you're not making money hosting the esport, and if you can pawn it off to third party companies, that's just like more revenue for you, right? Like, and
that's fair.
That's I think they just want a more year-round circuit, and the third-party events. They have allowed other third-party tournament organizers, especially in Valorant, to come in every year. I think Red Bull hosts a bunch of tournaments.
They do. The big question is, the way that I'm thinking about it is very much like how we would have thought about this if the Overwatch League still existed. How would investors or, our team shareholders view an esports World Cup where we have either been accepted to permanent partnership or are actively agreed? I think that still happens in Valorant these days. When our slots have just been instantly devalued by having this like TI level prize pool just dangled in front of everybody's faces.
Okay, in Valorant, nobody pays, right? Like that.
Nobody pays, but like you are intertwined with the developer, though, correct?
Right, but like
you're in agreement.
I think the I'm not sure you would call it a devaluation in that case. Like everything else, like unless they started pulling back resources, which I think is something that's more like an LCS issue.
Sure, yeah.
I would say like at this point, LCS sort of is a stepchild position. For
sure.
BCT America, right? Like they get preference on the studio and whatnot, and that can't feel good as a franchise holder in the LCS, especially given the viewership right now.
Yep.
I think the one thing that is going to be interesting, and I'll keep in mind that it's an Overwatch podcast, so don't mind me, but there have been some big changes to the game at large hinted at. And I think that is almost like the reason to change up League big time is that you see declining rates across the globe to some degree, and you see it nowhere as much as in North America. It's probably not as big of an issue yet, but as they see probably like some numbers declining globally slightly, even though it's just still the absolute top dog in China, Korea, and whatnot. And then you just switch it up because the North American audience are just like all about hype, right? They're hype beasts that want high novelty, high turnover, Americans once again being competitive. And as the game changes, that kind of, facilitate, as more volatility allows for more upsets, right? Also something that Overwatch League could have taken advantage from. Also, probably a good thing for the Overwatch system and regionalization if the game was to become more volatile. That means regions like Korea lose a little bit of relative power, I would think. But yeah, I think, they're not really interested. Like the esports World Cup model is not even particularly interesting to me, I think.
You don't think so? I again, disclaimer, I think the system is entertaining to think about. I obviously would be very interesting to see how this is viewed in practice and what the details look like. I think there's something like, I don't know, it's kind of, I think it's a kind of entertaining to like rally around your team's fandom.
Yes.
Like, oh, I'm a Cloud9 supporter, so like I'm interested in this. Nobody's like this.
And that's what they want to do. They want to facilitate that type of fandom. But the problem is that like these
isn't
esports
that
organizations,
a perfect platform for it?
It is, but like the problem is that esports organizations, or very few, have actually carved out an identity and haven't just been following trends in order to be approachable, right? Like
say the good word.
There are teams that are good at this that will probably gain a lot from this. I'm thinking of the G2s. I'm thinking of the 100 Thieves and whatnot that have like a distinct flavor to them. But everyone else, like, it really stands and falls with the relative teams. Like, I think if you're a fan of Sentinels is getting there. Orcs are getting better at this for sure, right? But it is about, like, if you do not have a location to tie yourself to, if you do not have a virtual space to tie yourself to, if you do not have an owner to tie yourself to, then you have to tie it through a brand that resonates with the audience and has all encompassing consistent values across all its esports. And that's very hard to do if your players are really like the majority of the contributors towards that flavor in each esports. And it has to become from your content production team and socials to sort of mold all those players through these form. Like, you can have the different flavors of these players, they just have to fit into the mold. And honestly, like, the only team that I've consistently see that do well is G2.
Oh yeah, when it comes to like financials, I think that they've been very public, and it's very obvious that they like have like an identity, and they have like that kind of Wendy's style social media banter heavy, just like almost edgy kind of identity to them. And like, it's very clear that it works and it is very successful. The one team that I will say that I am impressed by, I thought it was a bold approach, even though it's weird to say that this is a bold approach. But it is very consistent, is FlyQuest. And I know this is an Overwatch podcast, but maybe one day a lot of these teams could be someone, knocking on your team's favorite door. The whole like very environmentally friendly, like wholesomeness to it, I think is very like particular. I thought it was like very interesting to see how much they lean into that, and I feel like that's really kind of stuck with a lot of people. I don't know how successful it is, but I do think it's like at least an identity. If I look at a team that's very new, like FlyQuest, and I look at a team like that's very old, like Dignitas, it's like, I know what FlyQuest is about. I could not tell you past the ownership of Dignitas, like what that team is even remotely trying to do at all these days.
You know what the wild thing is to me, Joe, is that some of the biggest esports organization, by value and by the assets that they have, still do not have a unifying brand in my brain. And the shining example of that for me is Team Liquid.
Yep.
These guys are all over the place. Not only are they like a Dutch American company that has like players from all over the world, which is fair, but like also the just like the messaging and the content they put out is not the same flavor across the brands.
No,
it's really hard
I think I think they may have like in a weird way evolved past a lot of it because they just have so much money, or it feels like they have so much money. I don't actually know, but they just everything. They're just in everything. They always have like crazy weird sponsors. They're always like collabing with
Steve
like some random new anime. He really fucking is 100%. So they might not need it, you know? Yeah. They honestly might not need an identity. They might just be rolling in cash, which is crazy to think about that it started as a website and now is one of
that actually tanked in value insanely, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, like they do still have Liquipedia, which is like the biggest asset tool in esports pretty much. And by the way, they should be thanked for that. Always more so the volunteers though. But yeah, I think that's going to be an interesting exercise. And if this is a thing to stay, I think esports organizations, if they want to see full value, really need to hunker down and develop one like a beacon that people can flock to. And it's much harder in esports, if we're being honest, because like it isn't about a city, right? And it's like the franchise players in some games also do not have the staying power where you can go like, 7 seasons Jordan or whatever, right? Like some of them are trying that. I think Vitality is they announced that. And by the way, Overwatch viewers, listeners, get used to more all-encompassing esports conversations happening as we entrench into the third-party system, and we have to understand how it works in other scenes in order to gain full value there. But Vitality recently announced that they have extended the contract with Zyru, which was the best player in the world last year. And they not only announced that he is going to stay for 2 more years, they also announced that they're playing long-term with him, meaning they're currently in the process of sort of goading him into or like teaching him the in-game leader specs, which is basically a thing to say, let's elongate this guy's career. He's still maybe not the best player right now, but definitely like top 3. And to have that brand stay for a long time, and it's very possible in CS for the best mechanical and individual players to get into the IGL role and then stay on top of the game for many years. It's a thing that I think you would have to say Faker has mastered as well. And that has been great value for the brands. We're getting better at elongating careers of the biggest stars in esports. It's a thing that was really hard for Overwatch esports throughout its history. And that's definitely something that you have to get better at. It's fucking wild that we're losing the GOAT. And basically, like a lot of history just seems reset once again, right? So like these things need to happen in order to make this more sustainable or more appealing to a wider audience who do not have just a city to attach to, who attach to personalities. And if these personalities change 3 years, and within those 3 years they were in 2 or 3 different teams, it's just like very hard to create anything lasting and attractive and monetizable, right? So the mimicry that we will have to make in order to make this work in a third-party environment is going to be crazy, and we're really behind. We're behind on like co-streaming. We're behind on attracting these big organizations. Look, it's if we're being honest, the Esports World Cup is a lifeline to this esport. As much as it hurts, but there's basically no reason to be in here if it wasn't for that. And even with that knowledge, it's super hard to pitch for these teams. Like there are major North American esports organizations coming in, going like, So, why should we sponsor you? What's the deal? What's the return for us? And all the teams can say is, well, it's
World
announced
Cup,
that
baby.
World Cup now, right? And that might just be the best argument right now, right?
100% it is. There's nobody outside of some of the players that have already been picked up and signed to teams, which I would hesitate to dabble with the word of buyouts. But nobody has the presence to like really attract a sizable esports org. Nobody has that kind of, following. Nobody has that kind of brand these days. Just doesn't happen. Just it doesn't exist. So the only thing you can really bank on is qualification to the World Cup. Simple, plain as.
Yeah.
If we get more information regarding the prize or the revenue split when it comes to the skin for the live events for the lands, maybe that can be swayed. Maybe teams can, give full, carte blanche to the teams to say, hey, we'll just give you all of our sticker skins or sticker sales, however CS used to do that. Maybe that can be negotiated, but there has to be more chips on the table. And the only way that more chips are added to the table is time and more information. Once we get more information on how we're qualifying, once we get more information on what the prize pool will look like for this esport, then we'll start to get these organizations coming in.
I also like to be early. I'd much rather be in a position where I look like an idiot for being overly zealous with criticism than not having said anything. But the current signaling of Blizzard Entertainment towards this esport is not sufficient in order to get this off the ground. It's not sufficient in the implied broadcasting budget that was given. We like the fact that we do not have a desk is wild, right? For now, how many talents were able to have a career here? How few broadcasting days there actually were? Like like even later rounds, group stage rounds, not being streamed at all. There not being any indication on what kind of level of involvement there will be to in terms of the skins for the packages, because the quality of those will majorly determine how much money you will going to make. Yeah. The viewership incentives for stage 1 are honestly not great, which also signals once again an implied commitment. It's just like 4 what's it? Sprays? Is it sprays or is it like icons? And it's definitely nothing substantial. It's not a skin, right?
Sure.
For stage 1, I think in stage 2 there's one. The messaging, like we did not have an active schedule up on the Overwatch League website. The best information once again was supplied by Liquipedia and like the Overwatch esports Twitter, like a day before games started. That is insufficient in terms of the resources. I will say I was positively surprised by the production value of both WDG and EFG for the broadcasts and the graphics. That their side is, as far as I'm concerned, all right. I think the streaming was fine. But yeah, I'm getting concerned about their seriousness about their involvement as an esports at a time where, once again, you gotta phrase it as a sales pitch. The game has not much else going for itself than the competitive mode. It is now, as of the developer blog, the most played, ranked as the most played game mode. And for that, the esports marketing tool for a competitive game makes much more sense, right? And that investment is not there yet, right? It feels like they are trying to look at what the potential for these esports is and then increase spending. And I just fundamentally disagree with that approach. I think, once again, you have to ask yourself why the revenue for a CS major can be 110 million for the Paris major in terms of the skins or the capsules for the Paris major, right? Why is that only 500K for, or implied 1 million for Overwatch World Cup? Right? Where's the disconnect? And I cannot imagine that the ratio of expenditure that Valve has is similar. You could even, I would even grant you the argument that CS is a much more opportune game as an esports, and therefore it's easier to derive value from that. But 110 million times more? Nah. Right? And you also have to say, I don't think that the money that Valve has put into these esports is really that substantially different than the millions that have been burned through the Overwatch League. There has to be some residual value, right, from that in the viewership. The bottom line is we're looking at the viewership of Overwatch Championship Series. With everything combined, I think you are looking at 40K. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less for the NA and EU games, right? At different varying levels. Probably average much lower, right?
Sure.
Korea, Japan, surprisingly high. I would say that's a surprise. I also maybe it's much more, but it's not substantially more. It's not six figures viewership on the Western platforms at least. And I wouldn't I saw the Africa stream for Korea that went at 64 viewers. They are mostly watching on Twitch and YouTube as well. But yeah, it's I just don't see that even as a viable marketing strategy for them to put any money into that. Like, I am.
Yeah, it's rough out here. It's one of those things that I feel torn on because I think we both knew that this year was going to be really, really rough. And it would have to be kind of a loss leader for this year, to have any kind of legwork to grow into. I do think it, like, a lot of these things could get better with time as we, as the OWCS team kind of like solidifies and like gets their feet under them. I think a lot of the drops could be better. I feel like I give Blizzard this leeway more often than not, but I would like to be, justified before I completely hurl a boulder at them and say that you don't care, mom and dad, I'm leaving. I need therapy now. So I don't know. I think I'm erring on the side of caution. I agree. It's not enough right now. It's too low. It's not catching anybody's attention. Hopefully, maybe that changes with our first LAN. Maybe that'll kind of get people back involved. Maybe they,
look,
get the
that's
streamers
another thing. I think
integrated.
folks will just not be. I think there will be some disappointment to what a DreamHack actually is.
Right? Okay.
Like,
yeah. I mean, it's not OWL, but
like it's the esports World Cup timing is also very unfortunate. Who are you going to convince that first major into esports World Cup, which is the into DreamHack Stockholm, and that's your World Championship. It's not, buddy.
Yeah, we are effectively ESL. You remember when ESLs used to do tournaments while like Riot was spinning up like franchising for League?
Yeah.
They would have like the ESL like World Championships and like nobody give a fuck. They're like, this is our World Championship. And I was like, is it though? Are you sure? Riot's doing that whole in-house thing. You sure that's not really important? Or like Worlds isn't, like super important? No, the ESL tournament prior to, the start of the leagues. That's where it's at. That's where the money is for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is fucking bizarre. It is very, very strange. However, in Overwatch news, there is some flicker of hope as we had another team partner with not a college. Well, I guess a college, but Luminosity Gaming and I believe Maryville are now in a partnership, I believe, some kind.
Yeah.
Trying to pull up the tweet. So that's very how to put this, like it is a little bit of hope that orgs are still interested, number one, but number two, they're looking and finding some kind of value with pre-established collegiate teams. Maryville obviously is one of the biggest, one of the best, of course, That's, it's a no-brainer. But could that be maybe the pattern moving forward? Could this be the start of a trend? I think we'll have to kind of see on that, but it goes without saying that, that is a good thing, right? I think that's a good sign. It'd be a bad sign if these teams were pulling out or weren't interested. So the fact that, it feels like every week we're getting we're crawling towards the finish line of getting orgs involved prior to the LANs, and then hopefully the LANs embolden them and the details and all this stuff. We get more and more and more, but we're slowly, very slowly going in the right direction. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't.
It's not much.
Yeah, I wouldn't count Luminosity as a big W because like they're just like majorly winning that exchange. I think like having Maribel in is the majority of the value here. But we already had that beforehand. There's been a couple of other announcements. There's still one coming. But yeah, that's a sort of open secret, I would think. It's maybe even a little bit less than I thought it would be at this point. I think.
Okay.
I also think like I saw folks speculate on the subreddit like this announcement of the Overwatch World Cup series will greatly increase the influx of teams into the scene. Buddy, folks knew, and if that was an influx, then it would have happened already. And they did talk to folks, and folks said, "Yeah, we are at Esports World Cup probably at that time." And then teams went, "Okay," and then not that many moved on it. Right?
Is it okay? So to that discussion, is there not like a hard deadline? Once we figure out who's actually attending, once we understand qualification, once we understand who is already qualified, then the orgs come running and go, so we want you for our club.
But what kind of mercenary type shit is that?
I mean, I
for 2.5 months.
I said it. I told you were gonna get slow rolled.
For 2.5 months, we can sign you, and then afterwards, what's left of the year? Oh,
nothing.
DreamHack.
We don't want you.
Okay.
Kick weeks.
Yeah.
I think it depends, right? It depends on some details, but I think there is a world where some orgs keep their players around in reduced capacity.
Sure. The fact that they already have them salaried right now sort of implies that there's some that are seeing the value in the long term.
Some kind of long term. But once you guarantee a spot, and maybe even a competitive spot, I'm looking at Korea. That's again, to circle back to the whole T1 discussion. If you're telling me that WAC is maybe not just competitive, but might be the best team in Korea, the odds-on best region, and you have a team right next door to you, knock, knock, hello, it's Joe Marsh from T1. We'd like to hand you guys contracts, come play at the World Cup. Like, some of these competitive teams probably are going to be pretty valuable for these orgs. How valuable? It goes without saying. That's a details question. We don't know.
I think like there's also a world where you look at all the other esports that you might be in.
Sure.
See that you got to pay 5 guys in Overwatch and a coach very often. Look at a game like Rocket League where it's 3 players. Look at a game like StarCraft where it's 1 player. Depending on how many you get to put, how many work for you in the top ranking. If it's just your best player or if it's about top 3, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I assume it's top 3. Based on how people have been picking up people. But that's still less like Fortnite is less. Rainbow Six Siege is the same amount. CS is the same amount. League is not confirmed. PUBG is less. PUBG Mobile is less.
True.
This
is fair.
All the mobile MOBAs that are in, like Mobile Legends Bang Bang.
Immortal Legends, I think, is one of them.
Fire something like
Firefall, Firefight, Firefest, something.
Yeah. So presumably that's also less investment there.
Likely, yeah.
Like the upfront cost of Overwatch is pretty high, and if there's no
It
other
is.
additional benefits towards being in the scene, then it's going to be hard, right?
Is there? I mean, is there not like a world where like a weighted system that like tries to balance the cost of? I don't know if it would be the cost or maybe the popularity, or is there a weighting to each title? Like how, again, I feel like a lot of this is like detail oriented question that is really tough to kind of get into the weeds of, because I think you're right. I mean, obviously you're right. Like factually, it is more expensive to get into a team esport than it is a solo esport. 100% it is. Um, is that going to matter in the grand scheme of things for the World Cup? Hard to say.
Brother, can you imagine if we were still 6v6? Jesus.
Yeah, that would honestly maybe even price some people out. But there's no like a minimum cost, so you can kind of throw them whatever. And I think they'd be okay with At this point, I think anybody's cool getting paid.
Yeah.
You're telling me that, again, a Reddit commenter, believe me when I tell you, once we get the details, once we get more information, once time passes, and we know who is actually qualified, that will be the dinner bell for all the orgs. You will have to fight them off with sticks.
Yeah, maybe, depending on the numbers, yes.
Sure, yes. Again, it is a detail-oriented question, but rest assured, our teams will be signing players as qualification for the World Cup happens, because let's face it, that's what these kids are playing for right now. Nobody wants to, I think playing at a DreamHack is probably great. I think that would be, that is going to be a silver medal. Winning the World Cup and winning the quadrillion dollars that the Saudis are throwing at this, probably going to be, most important.
Yeah.
MO of the year for sure. So we will have to see. World Cup is definitely big. Very exciting news coming from Korea. I know that was all wrapped in the Korean segment, but has me shocked because I actually did not know that WAC was that good. I did see the Rush tweet that he talked about how he's saying maybe the best DPS, which I was like, homie, you signed Sparkle for 25 million years. I don't know if I trust you, but apparently it's pretty good. So I will have to dive into that.
It's also really good right now, Prophet.
Yeah, I was going to ask. You were talking about his team. I was like, oh, I wonder how Prophet is doing, because I was not impressed with his rookie showing. So
yeah, no, he's
pretty good, huh?
He's arguably the best player on Runaway, and you would have not thought that to be the case based on the roster, right?
Absolutely not. Yeah,
it is kind of. I think they were playing.
Is it like a hit scan thing? Are they like?
I think during a recent game, I vividly remember, one of the casters just saying like Prophet is the best player on the server, right?
Wow.
Amidst all the stacked talent of Overwatch League players, right? So yeah, this kid, once again, second year. That's when they're hot, when they still have something to prove. The LAN jitters competition jitters are off. It's also, by the way, that was a sentence. Finale was competing, and someone, I think, was it Achilles Wolf? I'm not sure. Someone said this was the first LAN for Finale.
Ah.
Now think how long that guy has been in Overwatch League.
Yeah.
And it was his first LAN. That's fucking wild.
Yeah. Welcome to the esports with no LANs.
Crazy, by the way.
Yep.
Dude,
straight out of COVID into
my
online,
esports,
baby.
My esports OG hard really feels like none of that mattered then. Like you basically did not have a career.
I think there are some like esports hardos that probably would agree, but I think that is a little dated, especially post COVID.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And COVID is a major player in that being the case for Finale's career specifically, right? Like, let's be honest, but it's still a wild thing for a professional, especially like the side of the Overwatch League, to have happened.
Sure.
Given, like, I don't know, CS players probably play like 20 LANs a year, 15, something like that. It's just wildly different, right? But yeah,
It is.
I think once again, like if you're really into competitive Overwatch, I think like catching Avril's co-stream is currently my go-to. Keep it on the side while I'm working. And then, unfortunately, I'm not sure how VODs are handled. I haven't checked if co-streamers are allowed, but or I think it actually was in the rules that they are not allowed. I might be wrong. But yeah, otherwise, catching the VODs is great. To me, I understand the criticism. Joe, I promise you, you want to catch the broadcasts where 9K is casting.
I was just, that was one of the things that I didn't have time to today. I was cramming prior to the show. I was like, I really am interested to see like how 9K is adapted to this, because he either is going to give me all the gems I've ever wanted or is still getting his feet wet. And I'm happy to hear that it's fantastic.
Yeah. No, I think like there were some criticism on the it's like basically like a polarizing topic. Like everyone understands that this guy has the most insane insight of any color commentator that we've ever had. It is also true that his English is not easy to listen to.
No, of course. And to be honest, and I haven't listened to it, disclaimer, I have not heard 9K cast yet. However, with experience in other esports, I think he unironically would carry a desk and make it the most entertaining but also informative product. Not to like laugh at him, because I think especially people in Overwatch, it's very like affable when like somebody's like trying to speak the language and is like, you know, is still articulate, but you know, maybe is a little blunt because they can't find the words. It's fun. It's kind of like wholesome in a way, right? But having that like coach's mind, I don't know if you've ever spoken to an Overwatch or an esports coach. Let's just call it what it is. Esports coaches in general are some of the most like confident people. I wish I had that level of confidence because they are so sure on almost everything. They are.
This guy's hit rate is like really crazy high in how fights are going to be won, and that's not true for many like folks, right? Like they might have a good idea, they just do not consider that a random widow will one dink and then change the fight that way. I will also say I honestly would like WDG to give him more career. I understand why that's not the case. He's mostly casting the other reasons. I'm not sure if he does Pacific because I do not watch that. I watch him do Japan. And I think that's maybe a strategic decision. I just like, maybe that's also just me. Maybe that's good feedback from the audience saying otherwise. But like, I'd love to have him on the big games and sort of analyze that way. I almost would love them to maybe experiment and give him some other formats. Maybe have him have his own stream in that sense, and give him some flavor there. Or I don't know, like maybe you just gotta. There's like a wealth of knowledge there. I think also
you might tap it. Yeah,
it's important to point out that it isn't just his English that's probably not everyone's cup of tea. It's also the way he expresses thoughts that is very unique, and is, by the way, also something that is a little bit Korean coachy. I found. I think like the same. It's less technical about the technicalities of gameplay, the micro, but the rough framing of things is probably something, especially in terms of macro, that I also recognize from Rush and how Rush thinks. And so, yeah, I think there's a lot of value there, but it's also very possible that this is just something that you only feel if you've already like
experienced it or heard
consumed. Like you just gotta understand that like abstract art is not that interesting to the average guy that looks at a painting like once a week. Abstract art or like high level might be very interesting to a guy that does nothing else but that for a living. Like if you look at a Paris fashion show or whatever, as the normal guy, you just look at that and go, what the fuck is going on? You are from another planet.
Mm-hmm.
But everyone that's sort of in there gets it, right? Like they have consumed enough. All of the dopamine has been squeezed out of the ordinary like innovation, or rather subjects, and then like they keep innovating for the finer and finer palette. And sometimes something useful is in there for the average guy that trickles down then. But otherwise, like it's completely removed from what everyone else can enjoy, right? Like, and I feel that might be the effect that I'm feeling with 9K. But I still personally greatly enjoy watching him cast.
Yeah, I'm very, very interested to see what that's like. We'll definitely have to tune in. Yeah, it's gonna be something I have to sit there and binge. That said, I will probably have to scrap some of the clips in the consideration of time. However, moving to the West, there's not too much news.
Let's do clips. Why not? Clips is fun. No,
I still want to get to Dune.
Oh my god!
So I don't want to get hung up on clips. We can do the clips for something else.
How long are the clips? They can't be like I.
I mean, there's a couple of fun ones, and then there was I basically prepped some clips if in the odd case that we didn't like I needed to like get a crunchy conversation going.
Mm-hmm.
That's where stuff is like, meh, we don't have to necessarily do that. However, fans, Timmy's in the chat, Discord members, if that is something you do want, please let us know. We can facilitate that. More than happy to. But we can't know unless you don't tell us. So comment, like, subscribe, all that good shit. Yeah, clips are. It's not a big deal. We can get to that. We're already getting a little long in the teeth. So the West, not a lot to say. A lot of 3-0s, a lot of very like clear groups. However, in North America, there was a sizable upset between M80 and Timeless. I don't know if you necessarily caught that on the timeline. M80, obviously the big team with Hawk, Spectra, Pelican, Hydron, a lot of former Owl people, yeah? UV. They lost to Timeless. 3-2.
Crazy. That's actually crazy.
That is crazy.
Who's
it
on
is.
Timeless again?
And Timeless is Rocket, Sun, June, Chopper, Riker, Icy, Opener, and CJ.
Lol.
So that is effectively 2 imports in a collegiate team beating up on, and I mean, this was competitive, but it was like disappointing.
Mm-hmm.
To M80's credit. Somebody in Discord, I think it was RD. It was either RD or Alpha Tryon that was talking about like, you know, it is important to remember that M80 is kind of, you know, apparently was kind of thrown together last minute. No, this is kind of like a new team that kind of like got whipped up.
I'm not sure how long they were together beforehand. But yeah, I think that yeah. I think there was a couple of last moment decisions. Yeah.
Okay. So like that is, you know, that is something you have to take into consideration.
Sure.
It 100% is, right? However, let's start with the good news, right? Timeless. I was thoroughly impressed hearing the plaudits of some of the contenders, commentators and coaches, bigging up Rocket as like a tracer one trick.
Mm-hmm.
We saw that in the Pro-Am. Homie can hang. Continues to look like an absolute stud on the character. Outside of Rocket, I would have said if you just watch Control and maybe Push on from that series, I think, or maybe it wasn't Push, maybe it was Flashpoint. I think it was Flashpoint actually. I think I probably would give MVP to Opener in a very, very weird way. I did not expect Opener to be at that level. I thought Timeless was incredibly coordinated, but also very particular at what they were doing. So if you know me, you know how I like my main support. You know, I like viewing everybody as like a little chess piece. You know, and if everybody has like a job, or if it's very clear that somebody has a job, it's very interesting to see how, you know, one player's, you know, knight is different, or how they're using their knight versus, you know, another player's night, right? For example, Lucio. There's still some similarities in hero picks right now, even though it's a relatively open meta. And the fact that Timeless had a job for opener, it was very clear what his job was. Spoiler: his job was to mark the enemy tracer in either Pelican or Hydron. They both kind of shared the role. And opener was in their face like a fucking billboard the entire match and made it nigh impossible for them to do anything, while Rocket was actually smurfing and making Lep want to cry. On top of that, boy, how do we have to talk about M80's support lineup, because I don't know what happened. I like Ultraviolet. I thought he was, had a great showing. Oh, that was a rough control match versus them and Timeless. Homie missed like multiple lamps on Hawk. They really didn't feel super comfortable. Sometimes he just dies with lamp up. Lips trying to put out beat to like do certain things that like feels like, okay, this follows like a game script, this looks common, but they don't touch the point. That was another big one, right? And that was one of the clips that I had sent where I was like very confident up until this point, up until this one clip where I was like, you know what? Timeless actually has owl level objective control, and it's really sad to see that M80 is not trying to play the objective. It's not this one, Eric, but it is the, hold on. Please hold. It is the first C9. Yeah, it is. Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. It is this clip. I'm dumb. Yeah, it's that first C9 clip where that was the only time I feel like Timeless really didn't have like exquisite objective control. So for audio listeners who can't necessarily see, it's this clip on Coliseo. Over time, Timeless needs like 10 meters to cap the point and win the match. They're up 2 players. They're coming back from spawn, and I think they have their tracer. They have Rocket touching the point. He gets railed, and the time just ticks. Like, he's the only person in range to touch the point as everybody is setting up above it, and they just lose in a position where they probably could have potentially won the next fight. Down a tracer, yes, but you have positioning, you have a window to fight through. Their tank is actively coming back from spawn as well as their tracer, but tracer probably doesn't get to take that long. Like, that was the only time that I was like, fuck, I can't actually write that in my notes and say that like Timeless like doubled the objective pressure and objective control that M80 had. But if you look at control, if you look at flashpoint, the amount of times that Timeless is able to just get free flips on control point game types, where they just get free flips, they just start occurring percentage. Occurring, yeah.
Accruing.
And occurring. Say it again?
Accruing.
Thank you.
Cleek.
They're say it again?
Cleek.
Shut up. They're gaining percentage, okay? And like M80 has to fight them off the point, and it takes them forever. I think at Flashpoint, they literally lose each, like Timeless loses the first fight on each of the Flashpoint openings, but they get 50% for free. Like, that can't fucking happen. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, that is unforgivable. Like, something that I think can be improved on, but it was a very strange showing from M80. I do think Timeless probably could have closed it out earlier. M80 did have a couple good showings on King's Row. I thought their attack on King's Row was exactly what you expect from an owl level team. They put Hawk on Diva, and they just punch a hole through point A, and they just never look back. But past that, yeah, it was very rough without some like heavy lifting from some of those star players like Hydron, like Pelican, Hawk out there doing some big plays as well. Like, this was a struggle to make this close. I really do feel like Timeless probably 9 times out of 10 cleans it up without having to go to game 5. Do I think M80 is a bad team? No, but it is surprising to see an owl caliber lineup kind of struggle against what would kind of just be considered a collegiate level, like mid to upper table contenders team, right? That's concerning to say the least, right?
Yeah.
I still think M80 gets out of their group, but
probably
that was definitely a big
Timeless
question
Obsidian
mark.
has the chance to do the funniest thing ever, though.
They do.
And I'll tell you what, the way M80 has moved, that teams would not be with the organization much longer.
Oh, really?
I mean, they kicked their team beforehand, right? Like the last one. I think they're just probably interested. Just to be fair, why would you stick to a roster that
isn't performing or doesn't actually qualify? Yeah, 100%. There's no reason to. If any team is signed, doesn't qualify, they're gone. 100%. Any team.
Keep in mind, if Overwatch Championship Series is a way to qualify for the World Cup, and therefore group stage 1 and group stage 2 matter a lot, right? Then your chances of getting one of those slots is very low based on you not making the second group stage, presumably. So, fair play.
Yeah, I do believe that M80 will make it out. I think they're going to qualify. They're not a bad team, but it was just a surprising result. And with the further inspection, it was a little concerning. On paper, a team that probably should be maybe marked as a high rated team in the West. It's got to do a lot of improving, a lot of work to be done. But obviously, the potential is there. We know all those players very, 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 very closely.
What's LFO score? Just for the funsies?
LFO? What do you mean?
Oh, they're also 1-1. Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Because that was a squad that was potentially going to be, or
Dragon Seeker.
Yeah. They lost to Luminosity?
I mean, Maryville's not bad.
Yeah.
It's not a bad team.
They actually lost to the Citrus Nation. What?
Okay, that's bizarre.
Am I reading this?
Yeah, no, that's correct. Yeah, Citrus Nation 3-2.
And they have to play each other again, huh?
For audio listeners, I'm just gonna run through the Citrus Nation lineup. This is Emmanuel, Tap, Danny, Eric, Zeb, Dupree, Avertings, and Z-Man. Everybody, very
wow, it's not bad. Good job, guys.
Very, very impressive. Very.
I heard that's already, but nice.
Was Citrus Nation not one of the teams that was called up because of the disqualifications? Am I wrong? Or is that the? Oh no! Is this the team that had the crazy the tiebreaker shit go on?
It was the tiebreaker team. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Very cool. Cool story. Love to see it. Hopefully, Citrus Nation is the FNRGFE of the OWCS. Fun team. Love to see it. The other interesting story was from EMEA. A lot of 3-0s here as well, surprising nobody. However, Spacestation Gaming did clinch their qualifications out of Group D by beating XO. Oblivione, in particular, this was a very
great match.
Interesting. It was a great match. It was very interesting to see the dichotomy between the NA and the European meta. Like I mentioned prior, a lot of Reaper. Space Station still running their archetypical, their style of, they always kind of were that rush team, and they found a way to still kind of be a little rushy, but instead of playing a hero that is quote unquote not viable in Reinhardt, they have Hadi on Winston, which if you're familiar with some of London's past experiences with having Hadi on Winston, it may have not been the best look. Spoiler, it actually worked really well for them. Case in point, or one of the big reasons why, was because they had a mobile, a higher utility-based cover for Backbone's Reaper. I feel like that was one of the biggest driving factors. Backbone got to exist and have higher uptime compared to Shockwave, who I need to see his POV because that boy was perma-dead, I think, the entire series. 5 maps of him actually just getting smurfed on and dying consistently. It was actually very, very strange. Him on Reaper, always dead. I think on Push, they put him on Oblivione, ended up moving him to Sojourn. And he had a couple moments where he wasn't actively getting sat on the entire game, and you could kind of feel his presence. But I feel like Space Station has this blueprint that I feel like an NA team could take and just run with, where they just dive a hit scan and they eliminate him ridiculously fast. And it didn't feel like EXO had an answer to that because they were so focused on running Moira. We're so focused on having that throughput healing, that high output, that it didn't matter. You didn't have the burst healing. You didn't have a way to protect a target, and Space Station would just be on their ass immediately, just running them over and just killing them.
Right.
And oftentimes that'd be Shockwave. But yeah, super high tempo from I keep wanting to call him Samsung because I wrote in my notes that it was SSG, but Space Station. Super high tempo, so very fun to watch. I'm so glad that this team is doing well for themselves. Will get out of that group, is already guaranteed to get out. It was a close game. It was definitely worth watching. But it's impressive to get a litmus test to how this team's gonna go. It definitely feels like they have the ability to run dive these days because they have Psycho on Tracer. If there's a Tracer hit scan meta, you can run Psycho and Sparker, which I think solid DPS lineup. Yeah, no, Space Station is in the running, I would say, for the best team in the West. I don't think that's like that crazy to say. I do have to do a little bit more homework on Toronto. I need to see more Toronto Defiant VODs before I can confidently say that, but I like what I see so far out of Space Station. I think they have a fun style. I think it's going to be a little hard for teams to kind of like wrap their head around that. It's not foolproof. It's not the Rhine stuff, but it's particular, and I think that it's an interesting one. We'll have to see. Good news all around for them, though. But that was, I think, the only really interesting matches. I mean, I'll probably skim some of these other VODs, but it's kind of dire out here. A lot of 3-0s, and I'm just really not.
Right.
I'm gonna keep it a buck. That's just not my cup of tea. I need a little bit of back and forth. Need some kind of drama.
Eric,
I am only human.
Scroll up a little bit. I just want to see who made it. Oh, okay, Twisted Minds, Expected.
Shocking. Yeah.
And then All Spray Check. Yeah. Okay, all of that is very much expected.
Yep. Nothing crazy going on.
Okay, fair.
So yeah, that's your OWCS recap. If you don't want to talk about Dune, it's okay. You can get out now. We love you. Don't worry. So Yiska, 7.6. You got to tell me about Dune. I need to know.
So, I think there were two great scenes that really vibe with me. The problem is like the sense of scale. I don't know, like I just felt off in some way. Like people said like there were beautiful shots that really had like some awe-inspiring aspect to it, and they didn't feel that great to me. It might be due to like the regular cinema. I might have also caught like a bad resolution or a bad spot to sit, but I don't know, like these shots that should obviously do something to you, like for instance, and then we're spoiling here, so just get used to it, or like be aware. For instance, Paul running through the masses, like through the like the top down shot where he just like parts the sea. And
Yeah.
Did not feel that impressive to me whatsoever.
Yeah, that wasn't one that really stuck out to me personally.
The dunes themselves, like the landscapes, I think that should have hit. It really didn't hit that much. Like, I think it was recorded in Jordan. That's a beautiful country as well. I don't know. I didn't feel it that much. I think this is weird to say, but I think like the humorous moments actually felt a little bit out of place.
Really? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I am not a fan of that. That shit is so fucking bad, especially in like Marvel movies. Fuck off with that.
You don't want any levity. I felt like Stilgar
done.
like had like the right amount of like, just little quippy, and it was interesting.
It makes some sense because he has some kookiness to him, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, like I don't know. Like I think I could have done without that.
Okay.
I did not feel it was so long. length was all right.
No, not at all. Yeah, I thought it was fine. It felt like 3 hours went by very, very fast.
Yeah, I think okay. And here's okay. You ready for this, Joe?
Okay.
I listened to over 20 minutes of podcasts during the movie because I CBA with fight scenes. It's such a boring, like fucking
Really?
mind melting experience for me. I do not care. Just show me who won, how. That's fine. I do get nothing out of choreographies of fights.
Yeah.
There's no weight to them for me. If you told me like the fight between Paul and his, what's it, cousin?
Fade Raltha.
Yeah. He gets stabbed but makes it out. That's enough. I skip.
Yeah.
I skip.
I thought the ending to that fight, the choreography was kind of confusing. It was very clear that like, oh, Paul was stabbed, but I don't know if anybody else felt this way, but like it was kind of dark, so I couldn't really tell, not the theater, but like the actual like image on screen was a little like obscured, so I couldn't really tell like what was kind of happening. Like it was very confusing, and then you like as the scene kind of pans out more and more, like you have like the context to say like, oh, okay, like, you know, Paul makes it out, so Fade must die. I was kind of looking forward to, I don't know if you've seen the 80s movie, but like Paul uses like in that movie, I don't know if this is like canon in the books or not, but he uses the voice to like crack open Fade's like sternum, which I thought was kind of dope in the 80s movie. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like,
yeah.
You make this like magic system or this power, and like you utilize it. I felt like they utilized it a lot in the first movie, but they didn't really. I don't know. I felt like it was kind of like sidelined in movie 2. There was also a lot going on, but
yeah,
I don't know. That could have been cool. I know that there was like some use of it, or there was more of an emphasis on it in the books. I think if memory serves, like Lady Jessica is like tasked to teach the Fremen or like train them in the way of like the Bene Gesserit, right? Something like that.
What? Come again?
Was Jessica? Thank you, Eric. What in the books in the first Dune book, the way that Paul and Jessica are like integrated into like the Fremen society, is that not on the like agreement that she teaches the Fremen how to use like the voice in like the weirding way or whatever? Am I wrong in remembering that?
Yeah, no, I don't think that's part of it. I think
Okay.
I think she's just there to be the Reverend Mother for them, right? Because they are old.
Okay.
Reverend Mother is dying. And in some ways, this is all a Bene Gesserit plot, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, I don't think there's much really agency from the Fremen at all there, to be fair.
Yeah, no. They're they don't, it's tough for them to see otherwise, or some of them. Yeah, no. There was, I think the Siege, the scenes within the Siege that I thought were very cool. Like when like Stilgar's explaining to Lady Jessica that like, oh, like all of this is like the what's the verbiage that he uses? Like the souls are put to rest here or something like that. Like the sea, like the big pool that they have where all the water gets returned to. I thought that was very like striking, and like it was very apparent before they explained it all. That's what was going on. I thought that was like very like visually like, you know, to scale, and I thought that was cool. I thought some of the like eco-terrorism with the fights around the spice harvesters was very cool. I so totally agree. I think it was Will Neff that talked about how the sound. I already talked about the sound design, but I loved the sound of the like the weird like shotgun machine gun they had on like the ornithopters. Oh, so satisfying. So just like crunchy and just like just cut through everything so well.
I couldn't tell you. I was listening to a podcast.
I know you're. You are so ADHD brained. It's unreal.
That was
so
uninteresting.
Yes, it's not interesting. It's just fun. It's just entertainment. It's just fun to see shit blow up and
no,
action.
It's not. No, it really
is a little bit. It was a tasteful amount in Dune 2. There wasn't too much, It was a tasteful amount.
I think it was too much. I disagree. Like,
Really?
that's my
nuts.
favorite part about the first movie is like everyone says like, oh, it's sort of like this this preparation and so it can pop off now. No, that's the best part. The lead up to it, the establishing of those confronting fronts and the mechanics of how that happens. In contrast, I felt what's the guy's dude, I read the book. I could not tell you what the freaking cousin's name was.
Fade Routha?
Fade Routha? Okay.
Yeah.
That dude just died very quickly. Like it felt like an hour. It was an hour between him showing up and him dying. The Baron death felt much more rewarded, but also a little uneventful, given the weight.
It felt uneventful because they changed the book canon.
Yes.
If memory serves, the way that the Baron dies in the book is that Aaliyah, Paul's unborn sister in the movie, ends up killing him. No.
Dude, it's been a while since I read the book.
I'm. It's a little fresh for me because I've been on like a little bit of a Dune kick, so I've been fucking side content Dune for a little bit.
I think you're right.
Yeah, I think that's right. I could be wrong. Let me know. But yeah, the whole like, I remember seeing Anya Taylor-Joy, who was like cast to play Aaliyah. She had like a scene.
Yeah.
I wish I was like, oh, that's very funny.
She should have not.
It probably, it shouldn't even been. It probably should have just been cut. I loved the fact that like Jessica's like talking to Aaliyah in utero. I thought that was like a fun touch.
Yeah.
But
I mean, that's how it was, right? Like she almost.
Yeah. She was completely. Yep. That was a whole. I don't know how accurate that is to the book. That's beyond my scope. But is it? Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. I thought that was just something that the director like just ad-libbed, and I was like, oh, how smart. That was very interesting. What were we? Yeah, I agree that like the beauty of Dune is the webbed like interconnectivity of it all. And that is naturally just kind of slow. I've also heard that the book was like very low action. Like they don't really talk about a lot of fighting. They just like they don't talk about fighting in the midst of fighting. They talk about it in retrospect. Like I remember hearing or listening to some kind of podcast where they quoted this as one of the big changes that in the books, like Chani and Paul talk about raids in retrospect, and what we got in the movie was raids in action, right? Yeah. So that was like a little bit maybe jarring for like book, truthers. But yeah, I hear the David Lynch, I think, did the 80s movie and talks about like how difficult it is to like make a movie like this. And it was definitely something that I had to like kind of experience through my girlfriend, where she was like, "So who are these guys again? Why do we do, like, what did they do? How are they connected?" Like it is so grand in that way that it does kind of lose itself in itself, like there's just so many moving parts that it is difficult to follow. But once you kind of plug into it and you ride the wave a little bit, like it is very, very cool, and it does explain a lot, and everything makes, for the most part, sense. And that wasn't necessarily, I agree, it was maybe a fault of it being a sequel, that it just had to it didn't have to have more action, but it was a choice. And I feel like I liked it, but I could see how people were like, "Oh, this is the tone that's being set in part 1. That will continue to part 2." Mm-hmm. I don't think it necessarily could, because of like how the ending happens with, storming the castle. It doesn't have to be super action packed, but there has to be probably some action, right?
Yeah. I think some action would be fine for sure. Okay. I think there's also a total possibility that, and I'll probably will go back and watch it in IMAX, because there is a very high chance that it will transformationally change my perception.
Should be.
It really felt like the screen quality that I watched it was not great. It felt like 720p.
Oh wow.
And then also IMAX actually shows you more of the footage, right?
Yeah.
So it's possible that this is just like a better viewing experience, but yeah, I don't know. Like, I think my favorite part of the movie was honestly the whole romance moments early on, and how that weaved into the environment and that developed.
I will say, have you read all the books, or like enough of them?
Yes.
Okay, I am very interested to see how they. Obviously, from my understanding, Chani's very different from how she is in the books in the movie.
Right. Yep.
The way that the movie ends, spoiler, like it's obvious she's not gonna die.
Yeah.
But like, how is that handled? Like, why is that? Like, how are they gonna handle that difference in movie? You know, in the second movie, when like one of the major plot points is, you know, again, spoiler, don't click away if you don't want to hear this. One of the big plot points is like her giving birth, right?
Right.
So like, what's going on there? Like, what's the deal? Yeah, very, very interested to see how, if at all, it deviates. Very interested. I think Denis Villeneuve, hopefully I'm saying that right. Frenchies,
yeah.
Forgive me. I think he said he's doing 3 movies and that's it. I think he's like tapping out at 3, but we'll see how.
I think he will explore options after, and I don't think they have even started production on 3 yet. I might be wrong.
I mean,
and that means like we're looking at 2027 at this point.
Yeah, we're it's gonna be a few years out before we get another Dune, but rest assured, I'm sure it will be. My assumption, and I said this to my girlfriend after reading into some of the history of how the books were received, and seeing some of the, I think, accurate response to the first movie. That response being like a critique of like all of the people that are like, oh yeah, Paul's like the good guy. Paul, we love Paul. Paul's great, and it's like,
he's a good guy until then. He's a good guy pretty much in the movie until he drinks that shit, right? Like until he
I mean, yes. I think there's a lot to talk about when it comes down to like how noble can you be, especially with like the rediscovery of like Gurney. Like Gurney immediately is like, oh my god, like so many people, so many weapons, look how good they fight. Like you can utilize all these like crazy myths that like you're at the center of to like weaponize the people. And he's like, that's, you know, like it feels very obvious that he's struggling with like, you're right, but that's wrong. And then obviously he gives in at some point and just runs with it. But it is a struggle. And
I think like there's a big misconception. I noticed it in the reception of Attack on Titan 2. What omnipotence means to human individuals. I think there's a big misunderstanding how much agency there is left in solutions that you find.
Yeah.
Like at that point, if you can literally see if you can simulate every future, which is also once again implied in the movies,
yep.
And there's only one path, then there is no agency in you arriving there. The only agency is you valuing a particular goal, and that's what the character should be judged on.
Yeah.
Right? And the outcome across the way. But like just have to infer that every other scenario is probably more bloody, it's probably just not going to bring about bring about victory. It's maybe going to be bloody more for their group, which is also sort of like a human thing, right?
Yep.
But it really like changes the equation of moral culpability in a major way, other than the goal setting.
Yeah,
And then you just gotta infer based on the qualities of the character what kind of decisions they've made, right?
Yep. Yep.
Um,
It like, but I'm so happy that you brought up Attack on Titan because I was like very like as I completed like the first book through the movies. I don't think that's even fair to say, but you know, I'm more adept and equipped to handle a conversation about it. It did feel like very it at the root of ideas like Attack on Titan, where you do have like these big picture, big scope ideas that are thrust onto what was maybe once a heroic character, and it immediately slaps an anti in the front of it, and it's like, this is way more contextual than people are like reading into it. And I do think, akin to the history of the book, the first book was met with like a big reception, one of the best sci-fi books, yada yada yada, big awards, all this shit. But the second book, Dune Messiah, apparently was hated. I think people really, really disliked the fact that he really leaned into the idea that like there's a lot going on here, and he did a lot of.
There's certain, I won't spoil that, but like there's certain discussions that he's going to have. I'm really interested if those make it into the movie. I cannot see that, right?
Sure.
Like the dictator talk, and that's going to be.
There is a sense within the first trilogy, I believe, leading into the fourth book, I think it is, about how like humanity loves a dictator or like something like that,
right.
or like harshness, something around that, and it is challenging to the viewer, and it is very highly contextual. And I think the dilemma that I think a lot of I hate to just call out an entire generation, but I think a lot of like Zoomers will find with this, much like they did with like Eren Yeager. And I hate to just bring in anime in the scope of movies, but I think Paul Atreides is going to become a Sigma male icon in the next 2 years.
I wouldn't. I also don't remember this source material enough in order to have a really detailed discussion. I feel much more secure. I feel like 95% of all people misunderstood Attack on Titan, and specifically the ending. And
don't we know?
And I think that's probably also going to be happening here.
Yes.
Even though the moral case is very different for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, I don't know. Like I could not even tell you why I felt like a lot of things did not hit that hard for me.
Huh.
Maybe.
Do you think it was like an expectation thing? Was it like, it
was high expectations? It was sort of like extrapolating from the things I liked about the book.
Okay.
I think honestly, like there's a high chance that it was based on not watching IMAX. And I'll maybe I'll report back. It is possible in my mind to even, because the way wait, how's he pronounced? Villeneuve?
Yeah, I believe so.
Talks about IMAX and his production and how much he values that aspect and how it is really created for that format. It's absolutely possible that this will change, because it is a movie that is a lot about the big moments and a certain gravitas of certain moments being told by the visuals, and those did not hit in that cinema. I will say I also think everyone was dead quiet for the entirety of the movie. There was really very little reception from the audience in my viewing. Maybe a couple of giggles during the Stilgar memory.
Sure.
I don't know, like I'm trying to like, for instance, one of my favorite parts is when he sort of presents himself to the Southerners and just like gets onto the platform and like
calls them out.
That's probably for me maybe the best scene of the movie.
Yeah. I mean, to that degree, I feel like Willy Wonka, fucking Timothée Chalamet, you gotta give the kid some credit.
Knocked it out of the park. Yeah, both Zendaya
take
and
this boy seriously. Yes, and I mean, I feel like Zendaya like has like serious chops. That never was surprising. I always was like, I needed to see Chalamet in like a role that like he could kind of show what he's got. You know, it's not just like some dopey fucking young kid. Like he handled his fucking business, and yeah, no, and the acting in the movie is phenomenal. Like there was, oh, you know what? Actually, you know what? No. I have a fucking bone to pick with whoever fucking casted Christopher Walken as the Emperor, because I will spare you all my Christopher Walken impression, but the fact that you could hear everybody's collective Christopher Walken impression, like it's just it was such a bizarre casting. I don't know.
Yeah,
so strange.
By the way, that's just because like we just scratched on the topic. I think one of the most disappointing parts was the reveal of the Harkonnen bloodline relation.
Sure.
That shit was way undertold, I felt.
Yeah.
That when I read that, I wasn't like, oh, what the fuck? It makes some sense, right? Like in the way they explain the genealogy that the Bene Gesserit has been prospering. Of course, there would have to be a Harkonnen in there at some point. You can kind of infer that this is where it's going. The direct, like, how direct it is to the Baron, like that shit just hit me when I read the book.
Yeah.
And it was like, just like, by the by. And then 5 minutes later,
yep.
Again.
It probably deserved a third part, to be completely honest. I feel like to have Aaliyah, to have like more of that emphasis on Princess Irulan and the reveal of like how intertwined the Harkonnen bloodline was within the Atreides, like you probably could squeak in another movie, let's be honest, but you kind of can't. The attention span only goes so far.
I always felt when reading Dune that actually the recollections of the Princess Irulan were the best part of the book.
Yeah, that was like so interesting to hear, is that like every chapter started with like a part of like her in-universe book.
And there's always like some fucking like incredible wisdom in all those insights.
Yeah.
But it's just like Herbert just went like, I just sometimes want to just say genius shit without having to weave it into the action.
Let me self-insert for a moment and just have this princess character say all the things that I wish I could.
I also, like, some parts of it I read and listened. I had like whisper sync for it, right? Audible and the way the audiobook worked is like super reminiscent of Sid Meier's Office in Tori, where it's like 1967 Princess of Irulan.
Yeah,
it's like it activated the Sid Meier's Office in Tori feeling in me. I'm sure like that game is probably
over my
influenced head. But yeah, it's an old ass movie. It's basically like space civilization.
I mean, okay, yeah.
And I'm sure it took influence from Doom as well. But Dune. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'll definitely revisit. I wonder if I did the wrong gamble and should have watched German IMAX instead of English screen first. But I will say, I think I have an inkling that I would have not been able to appreciate Timothée Chalamet's performance as much had it been through a translator.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
100%. It's always just such a shit thing to decide as a German dude. Like not only
it's tough, yeah.
And that's why like I went alone, because there's no friends that will ever watch an original version with me, right? And it's just like a transformationally better experience to watch it in the original. I'm
I
sorry.
mean, yeah, if you can parse through it and like your English is like strong enough, I would imagine that like much in the same way that like anime viewers, if your Japanese was strong enough, you probably would just appreciate the original actors more than listening to a dub. Don't miss me with the fact that like the subs are like that much like more impactful. The dubs these days aren't that bad in that neck of the woods,
No,
but
I'm totally on board. Like the Japanese voice actors are still like
they're good 100%, but like there
a
are certain
tier
shows that
above.
it's just not 100%. That you will not find me arguing on, but there are some shows that it's just like I don't need. It's not an acting show. This is not a serious show. I'm here to watch young kids fight it out for their friendship and their hopes and dreams. It's not necessary.
Mm.
It
Yeah.
ain't that serious.
No, I enjoy it more, even just for the vibes. I don't know.
Okay,
It makes it
fair.
a little more cumbersome to watch anime, just because like now it's
Yeah,
first
exactly.
screen content.
Yeah. That's the problem.
But that helps with concentration.
Retention. Yeah.
Attention and also like just selection. You're not going to watch a 7 out of 10 anime with dubs when it has to be your
Oh, because you gotta
Yeah.
fucking that's the thing.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna not to make this about anime, let's be honest, there's a lot of shit. There's a lot of shit media. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Right? A lot of shit content, and you gotta be working hard to get my first screen attention. So yeah, no. Very, very pleased with Dune. I particularly enjoyed my time. I wish I didn't go at fucking 9 o'clock in the evening because we didn't get out until midnight. So that was a little rough.
Yeah, same for us.
But yeah, no popcorn bucket, which was a little sad.
Really?
It was a select movie theater chain here, and I didn't have any around me, so they had their own like version of a popcorn bucket, but it was just like a tin that had like images of the movie on it. And I didn't want to spend like $15 on a tin for a movie that I was like, it'll be good, but like it's not that crazy. I'm not dying for it. Anything else about Dune?
Score was great.
Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, Hans Zimmer, I believe. Absolutely killed it. The sound mixing again, phenomenal. Visually, I thought it was very good. I did appreciate and I know that this is probably one of the more maybe polarizing choices that they made was the introduction and the fight scene when Fade is like in the gladiatorial arena on Getty Prime, where like the Baron is like testing him, like doesn't drug one of the Atreides prisoners. The fact that that's shot like an ultraviolet
black and white
like camera, I thought that was like very artistic, and like it really did lend itself to like making it feel kind of eerie and weird.
Yeah.
I thought that was super fun. Like that was just such a choice to go, yeah, we're gonna do something crazy here. It's like, oh yeah, so like that was fun. I don't know. Thought that was cool. Anything else? I can't think of anything.
I don't know, like worm riding in my head always looked cooler. I don't know why.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know what I thought was happening. I think like more of the surface of the worm was going to be exposed, maybe.
Okay. That's fair.
What else? Yeah, I don't know. Like, to be fair, like with all the criticism I've had for this, I don't think there's ever been a better cinema experience in sci-fi. Miss me with all of Star Wars.
Yes, 100%.
And there's really nothing else that compares to it in the sci-fi genre. It's like actually one of the movies, like you do not have to say it's good for a sci-fi.
No, it's just
genre.
A good movie.
It's a good movie. Yeah.
Yep.
Also, this fucking Villeneuve's batting average over the last 10 years, fucking crazy. He has to be the best actor of the last decade, dude. Director, sorry.
Yeah. He do what the fuck was the aliens? Yeah, obviously
Arrival
did Blade Runner.
Was fucking
Arrival sick. Was so like that you could tell.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the movie, but I've seen like reception of it and like.
Dude, I love the Arrival.
Very cool.
Holy shit, I love the Arrival. Yeah.
So yeah, no,
And
he
sometimes,
just puts out movies, man.
look, like sometimes a movie is just not timed well in terms of like when it hits in your life. Like sometimes,
Sure.
for instance, like I think every video gamer will understand this. You start playing a game and you go like, I can tell this is a masterpiece, but that's not me right now. I'll
Yep.
backshelf it. I'll get to it later. For me, for right now, it's Cyberpunk with me. I don't
Okay.
want
Okay.
to commit to such an experience. I know they updated it a lot. I know eventually um, I will enjoy it a lot. I'm just not looking forward to a 200-hour
Yeah.
experience right now in that. I'd much rather watch, something on
Sure.
second
Sure.
screen and play Balatro on the first screen. But as that clears up, and I also like got the competitive edge out of me that I got through Tarkov, there will be like a moment of stillness where I'll probably, return to an
Yeah.
experience like that. Um,
Do you think that's Dune for some people, where it's just like, not for me right now?
I speculate that that's what's happening with me.
Okay. Okay.
That it just did not hit at a great time while the first one did, right?
Yeah, that could be
For
it
the
too. Yeah.
particular appetite that I have right now. I'm much more looking forward to like watching Zone of Interest. Um, I'm looking forward to like a lot of the other Oscar nominees and catching up on, not like the gigantic AAA like fucking
Yeah.
bajillion-dollar productions, but like a little bit more quiet, more cerebral movie. And because Dune was a lot like that for me, the fighting just felt overwhelming. That's what it wasn't. The fighting wasn't the experience I wanted. I didn't want to watch an
Okay.
action movie.
Yeah.
Even though I, of course, knew that this was going to be one, right? Like be given on
Yeah. Hard not to be.
the book. But yeah, I don't know. I would have rather enjoyed an experience like Dune 1 was at this time. And I think I did not really think through how this would go. I just thought like, okay, people are saying this is an actual better experience than Dune 1, and just went in with that expectation.
Yeah.
It just did
No.
not deliver
Yeah.
that for me.
I feel like if I understand the rest of the books correctly, I feel like this is the highest action per moment
Right.
book, right? I feel like the next two books are like very
Yeah.
returning back to
For
that
sure.
first,
Yeah.
slower paced, more cerebral, more political, more, scheming,
It's like
discoveries and, exploration of, some of those previously established plot points. So I feel like you're out of the woodwork, but I feel like everybody else is getting, I feel like we won't have the same, like the public's reception will is directly correlated with maybe like your experience where like the public wants the action and you're like, I miss the cerebral, see the scheming of it all, the politicalness.
Mhm.
Whereas like as we continue throughout Dune, it's not, I don't expect it to be very action heavy. And I feel like that will reflect in like box office and ratings and whatnot, right?
Yeah. It's
People are gonna be like, oh, it's too slow.
it's the same thing for me like watching Game of Thrones. Like the big battles were not at all interesting to me. Like the outcomes were, right? Like, oh my god,
Sure.
he actually killed that character in that fashion. Fuck.
This motherfucker just spamming simulate on every fight. He's just like, I don't care. Get it over with. I don't want to play it. Sim.
I don't give a shit. Like I don't. Why would you care about the manner in which someone dies? Like, give me the essence. Like, if it actually transports something about these characters, and it like tells the story that way, or
Okay. I
their.
level with that criticism. Combat is usually and action is very like vapid. It's just like violence to
Sadoka were
have
just
violence.
fucking crash test dummies, bro. Like,
Yeah.
like the book sucks them off for a bajillion lines, and
Yep.
like here it's just like they are in a chamber, and it's just like, yeah, you're kind of fucked, boys. Like, and then even the Harkonnen soldiers are just like crash test dummies, dude. Like that, those just like getting slaughtered. These stormtroopers, dude.
Yeah.
No, nobody really meaningful dies by their hand. Am I wrong?
Sardaukar or
No, but I think the friend of
Johnny.
Yeah, that's the one character, right? Where you're like,
In
fuck.
this movie, yeah. In the first movie, obviously, like Duncan Idaho dies.
Right.
But.
Yeah. I mean, that also doesn't hit that well, but yeah, okay. I'm not going to spoil.
Kinda, yeah, kinda.
But yeah, I don't know. Like, dude, the best way I can explain to viewers how I feel is Jackie Chan movies are 2.5 minutes long for me.
Fair. I level with you on the action. I think that some of it was a little. Not some of it, but I think that's like a general, like, I would typically agree. I have to rewatch the movie to see like if there was like anything big. I think there were moments in like some of the fight scenes that like were callbacks. Like when when Paul and Fade Rotha begin to like duel, like he does like the salute that like like Duncan had taught him, right?
Right.
Like there are these like nice callbacks to like base the action within some of the story, at least. Not all of it, but some of it, right? It like it shows rather than tells you that like he's picked up on things or he's learning or this is an homage to XYZ, right? I thought that was kind of interesting. It wasn't the best, but it's probably hard to do that.
Yeah. I don't know what. Oh, you just turned robot. That was fun.
Oh, was it? Oh, because somebody drove by on like a little mini bike and it's obnoxious.
Oh yeah.
I will say, now that I'm thinking about the movie, the moment where like the fanatical like Fremen like tackles like the Baron on the ship and like gets kicked off and like falls to their death and like is praising like Muad'Dib and like just being fanatical, I feel like was such a good supporting like lever for the idea that like, oh, Paul is becoming like this messiah figure and like he like every moment everything he does is becoming a myth and like he has all these followers. Like they keep telling you that, but they don't really show you it. Right? Like, oh yeah, they'll bow and like, oh, okay, like, yeah, great. Like he's this big religious figure. Who cares? I feel like that was such a good scene to like really set up how serious it was, where it was just like, bro, they don't give a fuck. They will die and die. I mean, like get kicked off a spaceship getting off to orbit. Like they do not care, bro. Like they're here to fuck your shit up because this guy said so. They're not taking no for an answer.
Right.
Like that was, and I felt like you could see that, like that the whole scene was setting that up, and I felt like I wanted maybe like one more of those scenes or something akin to that to like really establish and like lock that into the audience that like they mean fanatical. They don't just mean it. They don't mean like, oh, they're fans of Paul Muad'Dib. They're like they are ultras. You know what I mean? Like that was sick. I like that a lot.
I feel like that moments where like he talks in front of them and just like fucking soul reads two of them.
Yes, 100%. Like that does like scratch that itch, but that's post. Oh, now my timelines are mixed up. I think that's post him drinking the elixir of life, right? When he like soul reads everybody at like the big meeting, right?
Yes.
I think the fanatical like Fremen on the Baron ship is prior to that. Yeah. And I feel like that really sets the tone of like how the Fremens are viewing Muad'Dib.
Yeah.
And like maybe one or two more of those, and I that would have like locked it in for me. I feel like that just like sets that fanaticism that I felt was like it was represented, but it wasn't to the degree that it should have been, I feel like.
Yeah. That, by the way, that's another disconnect from the book is like when Jessica drinks the juice.
Yeah.
The way in which, especially as she as she becomes the Reverend Mother, and the Reverend Mother goes, "What have we done?" She's pregnant.
Yeah.
The implications of that and the uniqueness of that position and what it means. I don't think the two movies have really accurately or sufficiently explained what Bene Gesserit are in that sense, right? And like what the historical relevance is and how special that moment is and what it actually kicks off. Like that thing is going to be it's basically the biggest, most important shit that happened in the entire movie in some senses, right?
Yeah.
So I think
in a lot of different ways.
That was sort of underplayed, I think. I understand that in the scope, like the problem is it does not matter that much for that movie, therefore it makes sense that you would understate it. But in hindsight, it will feel a little weird. Because everyone knows that this is that big. She knows. Like she's like in the book, she's like, what the fuck did I do? And like I did not see that coming, right? Like it's turning that. And like the capacity that her child gets through that is fucking wild, right?
Without spoiling it, the way that they handled the Baron's death immediately impacts how this plays out. Right. And I feel like that complete circle back, like,
not wrong,
you know what I mean? Like the complete 180 circle back to like the first book, that you don't get that payoff now. And I think that's disappointing.
Yeah, it's you're not wrong. Yeah, I don't know.
But we'll see. That maybe they can fix it. I don't know. Well, I mean, maybe not fix that, but yeah. I don't know. I'm excited. I haven't been like this like interested in an IP in a hot little bit, and Dune has definitely caught my attention. I'm Duning it up. Learned me some Dune. Learning the history of it was very fascinating, very interesting. Apparently, Tolkien did not particularly care for Dune. Found out, which was an interesting little piece of history. So, all right, anything coming down the pipeline, my brother?
Nothing to share right now, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's still a little dry right now.
Ditto.
There's really not that many juicy things happening, and I'm really concerned for Overwatch in that sense. I think there needs to be a little bit more drama in all of this, in some way.
Okay.
I did do. I'm not sure when. Yeah, I did do an interview with McGravy. I think that one turned out pretty well last week.
Nice.
Really illuminating what happened behind the scenes. And how close to the deadline they only found out that this was not going to be the case. He talks a little bit about the quality of the offer, like the North American org interests, and really like candidly talked about their position, and also like how this is like a major emotional setback also, right? So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Of course, like Unconscionable also after that covered it. I enjoyed that episode as well. And yeah, I'll see that I bring a couple of more interviewees on. Definitely keen. Just like I'm not sure, like who would people be interested in? It feels like a lot of folks that the most interesting folks have been interviewed recently, and I don't want to oversaturate. And with there not really being too much super interesting shit happening yet, as in not like the big games, it's tough to select.
Yeah, no, it's a tough one out there. There's not like a clear like storyline to follow or something to follow up on. So it's it is a little dry. I get that.
Yeah.
I hear you. All right. Well, what I thought was going to be a quick show turned into half a Dune podcast. So there you are. Go. Hopefully you enjoyed that. So 356, 336, 336, not 356. That's the second time I've done that. In the books. We'll see you next week. Adios.
Peace.